Hello, Simon. So this video is basically the part 2 of the video we did last week. And the reason was that, as I've spoken to you before, that when you're going through a bad form, there's so many bad things happening to you that I thought we weren't doing justice just making one video for that. So that's why I thought there was a need to make another video. So in the last video, we spoke about the body language, we spoke about the focus, we spoke about, you know, how to basically get out of the bad form and just go to the basics again. But in this video, I just wanted to talk about concentration, which is the main thing when it comes to batting. Yeah. Because the problem is that when you're going through bad form, there's so many things you think about, and the most important thing which you have to think about, which is playing the ball, you somehow miss that. And when you miss it, then obviously you're not doing the basics right. So I would just want to ask you that what is the most important thing in concentration, and how can you just concentrate on the ball, playing the ball?
Exactly. And it applies in all sports, doesn't it? You have to be focused, you have to be, you have to concentrate. And obviously for cricket, it's for, potentially long periods of time. Perhaps we'll look at that in a moment. But just to share a story with you is that I work with a group of people who do archery. They're actually wheelchair athletes, but my goodness me, they are absolutely phenomenal people. And what they do is they all line up. So they have, I think, about sort of 10 or 12 people lined up. So they have the targets in front of them. But what happens is that during the trials to get into the British team, and I assume for all competitions, is what they would do is they would line up really quite close to each other. So the particular athlete that I was working with, she said to me that, she goes, you could have kind of your two main rivals left and right of you. And it's so difficult to just stay focused on what you're doing, because inevitably you start to wander around and start looking at that one and looking at this one before you look at yours. And she goes, and your concentration goes just in a heartbeat. So something that she shared with me, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. And she said, I don't quite know why it works, but it just does. But I'll explain to you what she does, is that to begin with, she has a good look around. Okay, so she takes a look around her environment. And then she looks at her target, and this is what she does, is that generally, is that when you're looking around, is that you're in peripheral vision. So you see a very, very wide area. But what she would simply do is imagine that she had somebody's hands just about here. And then she would, on the count of 3, bring her vision so it's very, very focused on the target. So she would be peripheral vision, and she'd imagine these hands just here, and then she'd go 1, 2, 3. Because, and the reason that works so well is that naturally we want to see what's around us. That primitive part of our brain that wants to make sure that we're safe. Always wants to, I'm sure you've had this before, where you get a noise in the background and instantly you have a look. To not look is really quite difficult, because instinctively we want to know if there's any danger. So she was doing the same thing. The danger was her opposition, left and right. So she was looking around to see what they were doing. So by allowing her mind to have a good look around, be curious, and then say 1, 2, 3. We know we're safe. Now we can focus on what we're doing. And she was practicing this for several seasons and absolutely nailed it. And I've used this with lots of different sports. And I'm sure that, you could perhaps say, if you think that would work for batsmen, because, obviously when they're actually batting as an individual sport, you need to focus on exactly what you're doing. You've got fielders all around, you've got people talking, lots of distractions. In your experience, do you think that would be something that would work for batsmen?
Yeah, so I don't know about archery, but in batting, you kind of have like the same kind of situation as well, because the thing is, like, when you're underconfident, when you're going through a bad form, then your confidence level is obviously very down. So rather than just thinking about one thing, you think about too many other things. Yeah. So again, you have to bring your focus down just to one thing, which is playing the ball. So I remember I telling people was like, that rather than just concentrating on the whole game, you just concentrate on the time when the bowler goes back to his mark and when he runs in. So basically, it's about 17 seconds. So you just have to concentrate on 17 seconds rather than concentrate on the whole thing. because like you said, very rigid, like rather than like thinking about bigger things, you just think about smaller things. And then the other thing I used to do myself was I used to like, now I've studied about it, and which is like we as human beings, we respond to mental and physical cues. I mean, vocal and physical cues. So vocal cues mean is like, you always need to have a plan forward rather than just saying, okay, I'm just going to go and bat. You need to have a plan forward, and the plan forward in that situation is just in your mind, or you can actually say to yourself as well that, okay, just play the ball. Either you play the ball. What I used to do was, because I used to have a problem with the in-swinger, so I used to say to myself, just play the in-swinger, just play the in-swinger. So when I used to do that, my full concentration used to be on playing the in-swinger. And that was a plan forward for me as well. So I never used to then think about who's talking behind my back and what is the slip saying, what's the keeper saying to me. So I knew I had more chance of playing the ball than thinking about something else and then playing the ball. So it did work for me. Yeah. And because I'm kind of batsman I was, I used to go, I used to have a lot of times when I used to go to bad forms because of my trigger movement, And the reason was, whenever I used to do trigger movement, my head used to fall a bit. So I had to concentrate a lot of keeping my head straight. And the only way I could do that was by just thinking in my mind that I just have to play in swinger. Yeah. So you're right, it did work for me, and I'm sure if people can apply the thing you just spoken about, it can work for them as well.
That's really interesting. Do you know, I know that we're talking about obviously concentration, and I think very often, I mean, basically that's a muscle. It's a psychological muscle, but it needs to be worked in the same way as any physical muscle. And I remember a study, and I can't remember the details, so it was a little bit scratchy, but this was basically what happened was that there was a group of 20-year-olds which were taken away for 2 weeks. And the thing is that we are bombarded with kind of distractions and more so stimulations. So we're being stimulated all the time. And the biggest culprit of that, obviously, is the mobile phone, because we're constantly being, notifications, whether that's, Facebook, Instagram, or we're getting messages, or getting emails. It's just virtually from every moment at our waking hours of the day. So what this guy said was that, very interesting, he said the problem is that to stay focused on one thing has become increasingly difficult now, because we're being stimulated so much. It's almost kind of, we've been actually conditioned to be stimulated and to have these distractions. So what he did is he took these group of girls and boys, actually. So they were about 20 years old, and he took their phones away for 2 weeks. Now, they were allowed to use their phone for 15 minutes a day, and 15 minutes only, so they could catch up with family and friends. But after that, that's it. You've lost it for the day. And interestingly enough, quite incredibly, is that after 2 weeks, now I'm not absolutely sure if this was exactly right, but their focus increased by about 60%. Now, it might not be exactly that, but it was very, very close to that, just in 2 weeks. So what that enabled people to do is to stay focused on one thing and concentrate on one thing and one thing only for a much, much stronger or for a longer period of time. And I think that's something which is outside of cricket, it's outside of sport, but it's something that we can all do. Because if you think about every single time you look at your phone, every time you add a notification and you just put a little mark somewhere, and then added that up at the end of the day, I think you'd be completely horrified. And that goes for me too. And I'm nowhere near 20, but it's something that I think we're all being conditioned with, is that, we have it biased. I've got mine here now. So we have the phone there. And I think that it's so, so important for us to be able to increase our focus muscle just through some exercise, which is kind of outside of sport. And the other thing is that, which kind of, I thought about this last night, is that very often when our concentration goes and we're out of that zone, where our focus is elsewhere, our self-talk starts to cut in. And very often it starts to talk in a very negative way. So now all of a sudden the focus is gone away from a successful outcome to what could possibly go wrong. And someone said to me, so, I have to change my internal dialogue. And that's true. But what's an easier way of doing that to begin with is to stop the entire internal dialogue altogether. And a great way to do that is to take your tongue and push it into the roof of your mouth. Because when you talk to yourself, you move your tongue in the same way as you do when you're actually having an external conversation, which is quite interesting. So the next time you find that your thoughts start to go in places where you don't want, and your internal dialogue is talking a way that you really don't want, then just stop for a moment, become very grounded, push your tongue in the roof of your mouth, and then start using some of the focus exercises that we talked about, in the last video or a couple of videos ago. And also long term, just try that 2-week plan. Put your phone somewhere where you're not going to use it, or just use it for a week. And every time you get a notification, just put a little mark on a piece of paper so you can look at it and say, yeah, you know what, I'm addicted to this thing and something has to give. Because essentially you're saying, what's the most important thing to me? And for the guys watching this, cricket is going to be pretty much the top of your list. So just making a small sacrifice for a much, much sharper and a more successful long-term future.
You're right. It's a very difficult thing to get rid of this habit.
It really is.
What I've done over the years is, like, I remember I used to watch television a lot, and most of the time I was always in front of television, and because of that, I could never do other things. So now what I do is, like, again, I have a plan forward, which is like every time I think about watching a television, I then say to myself, no, what's important for me right now? So again, I have a plan. So basically, like, I leave the temptation for something I want to do myself, basically. Yeah. Again, the same thing for the mobile phone as well. Like I said to you before, vocal cues. So every time I get tempted to go in front of the phone, I just say to myself, no, I have to do something for 1 hour, everything. I want to do that for myself, for my future, for 1 hour. Only then I'm allowed to have 40, 50 minutes. Yeah. So it really works for me, and then I can concentrate on the things I really want to concentrate as well. Yeah. So you're right. You always have to keep reminding yourself. But again, the most important thing in this situation is to be aware of your emotions and situations. So I think I was telling you that yesterday, that this is the biggest thing I've learned over the years, that I can actually remind myself what the kind of emotions I'm going through. And I've studied about emotions. It's like emotions is the way we respond to certain situations. So if you think that situation is bad, you respond in a negative way. But if you think it's good, you respond in a positive way. So it's just in your belief that how you want to respond to certain situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the thing I'm going to talk about cricket is, whenever we're going through this bad situation, which is out of form, we think we're not good enough. We can't play cricket anymore. We can't do this. I don't know if I want to play cricket in the future. I don't think I'm good enough. But you just have to remind yourself that this situation is there to make you more stronger and make you a better player. Because all of us, all of the best cricketers around the world, they have to go through this situation. And I was listening to Sachin Tendulkar's video yesterday, and he spoke about mental toughness. And he said, I always used to have a plan A, plan B, and plan C. So whenever a plan A used to fail, I used to go to plan B or plan C. And that's how it works. Because the biggest problem is, whenever you're out of form, there's so many people around you telling, oh, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. But whenever somebody says, don't do that, then obviously, again, you have the negative state of mind. Yeah. So you have to change that state again into a positive one by coming up with a plan. So when you have a plan, you have a positive state of mind. Yeah. So, yeah.
Absolutely spot on. That's so true. And you're right as well. You get bombarded with people that say, do this, don't do this. I think then you've got to look at it and say, okay, who are the people that I believe in? Who are the people that know what's best for me? So you're looking at your coaching staff. You're looking at people who have mentored you. Everyone's going to have their opinion. Everyone's going to have their opinion. But understand that, what they're telling you, for the most part, is their belief, not yours. So when people say, you haven't got it, you haven't got what it takes. No. That's their belief. That's not yours.
No,
Not yours whatsoever. No. What they're saying is, in your position, I know I haven't got it. They're talking about them, not talking about you.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah, great video. Really.
All right, thank you very much.
No problem at all.
Again,
and let's get going for the next one.
I would like to say to our followers again that please watch the video and share the video if you think it's good enough. And if you have any questions, just let us know, and we'll try to make videos on your questions or your problems. Okay, thank you very much.
Fantastic. Good seeing you, mate. You take care.
All right, you too, Simon. Take care.
See you later.